Welcome to Concussion Fix Minisodes. These bite-sized clips are taken directly from our full podcast episodes to give you direct answers to your specific questions about persistent concussion symptoms and recovery. Short, clear, and packed with value. Now remember that these clips are not medical advice and you should always speak with your healthcare provider before attempting anything you hear on this channel. Let's go.
All right, first question. I was reading yesterday a general recommendation, not for concussion, that when you go walking, it is more beneficial for fitness to alternate periods of brisk walking with slower walking, sort of a HIIT approach. I have no problem walking briskly for half an hour, but I'm wondering if this approach might be more beneficial.
From a concussion perspective, the research is all just on steady state. So what you want to do, as long as you're not going above your top end threshold, then that's fine. But generally, like, this isn't, doing HIIT exercises is great for health, but it's not necessarily what you want for concussion recovery. So I would focus more on where the research is from the concussion recovery standpoint, which right now is all based on steady state, sub-symptom threshold exercise for 20 to 30 minutes per day. So once you establish what your threshold is, you work slightly below that for 20 to 30 minutes, do that for a couple weeks, and then you try to increase the threshold, see where the new threshold is, and then work below that for 2 to 3 weeks. So I would say stick with the steady state for now.
Yeah, I just heard this from a patient as well, Cam, where they were like, "Oh, can I do HIIT training?" And HIIT training is great if you have an intact, highly functional autonomic nervous system, because it is going to challenge you on the muscular but also neurological front. Anything higher intensity and changing intensities rapidly, you're going to have more of a challenge autonomically. But the steady state is you're trying to build that capacity in the autonomic state. So I agree with you, Cam, that the steady state for 95% of post-concussion patients is going to be the best thing. And then I think in general, after you've fully recovered or recovered as far as you can get, then you can start incorporating some HIIT.
Yeah, like same thing with weight training, right? People ask about weight training, and because you're going to have these fluctuations in your heart rate, it kind of mimics a bit of HIIT training, where it's like you do a set, your heart rate spikes, and then you kind of relax for a few minutes, your heart rate comes down. So that's going to be more challenging for the autonomic nervous system to deal with. So usually what I say is get yourself up to a point where you don't have a threshold. You could exercise 20 minutes, with no issue at, a high 80% of your max heart rate or 75% of your max heart rate with no issues. Then you're ready to now start doing HIIT, because you've basically proven that your autonomic nervous system is well balanced, and now you can start doing, more intense physical activity if you want.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Next question here is, I can't seem to get past the recovery mindset section. Any idea on how to help me get through this?
Okay, maybe we could get a little more specific, see if the member might expand a little bit in the chat for us. What part of the recovery mindset is it? The whole thing? Maybe there's one specific section where you're getting hung up on. So maybe we'll give the member a chance to respond there, and then we'll loop back.
Yeah, great. So the next one. Are there any homeopathic remedies that can help with headaches? They have gotten better while going through the program, still trying to pinpoint the reason. I don't think it's neck related, but more weather hormone related. I take arnica for other issues, but I didn't notice a big difference for the headaches.
Yeah, again, I want some clarification. Why are we saying that it's not neck and it's related to weather and hormones?
This is the challenging part.
Yeah. Okay. So, in general, listen, there are some homeopathic remedies like arnica that have been actually studied, despite the fact that it's really difficult to study homeopathic medicine because of the actual potency and the dilution of the actual remedies themselves. When you start getting into homeopathy, it's extremely personalized. So this is just a general comment. What do I mean by that? As a naturopathic doctor, I have training in homeopathy, and full disclosure, I don't practice it very much because it's almost like a subspecialty in its own. And there are actual homeopaths that this is what they've dedicated their life work to do. So if they want to come up with a personalized remedy for you, this means like they're actually matching your symptoms to that remedy. Arnica is unique because it is meant for any sort of acute trauma, especially when a person has that feeling of like, I'm in shock and I feel bruised. So those are some very specific connections. Those descriptors are really important. Headaches, there could be so many different types of headaches. Is it an ice pick? Where is it? Is it like a rubber band pressing? Is it pulsing? Does it feel like a vibration, a bell? Like all these different characteristics will determine what remedy you could take. So there isn't, there are a number of general headache remedies for maybe the most common presentation, but there isn't just one or two or three remedies like there was in the botanical world where it's like, try magnesium, try CoQ10, try B2, try turmeric with that's highly bioavailable. These are like top 5 evidence-based things to do. The homeopathy doesn't so much work that way. It's extremely personalized, and so it's hard to give anybody those types of recommendations when it comes to traditional homeopathy.
Yeah, and I think, and the member hasn't responded back, but I think, like, I know I've used homeopathy myself before, and I think people are just looking for that. What can replace Tylenol and Advil?
Yes,
I think
exactly.
that's what it comes down. Like, that's how I'm almost kind of reading this, as to, I don't want to take Advil, Tylenol anymore, and I'm completely guessing on this. Wanting to take something else, what can replace it is kind of how
For sure.
it might be.
And hopefully my answer kind of gives people context that in botanical medicine you can kind of make some of these like replacements because of mechanisms that are similar. But in homeopathy, it's extremely personalized in terms of like what remedies would work for what person, and work with a homeopath to try to find. If you're really stuck on homeopathy, then work with somebody that's going to actually match your symptom presentation to the remedy.
Absolutely. Great. Another question here. I would like to know where I can get Iron Head 360 treatment for my weak neck. I'm not sure I should do it as my neck is still weak and tight. I'm working with a physiotherapist and chiropractor, but neck is still weak.
You'd probably have to go to, it's called Topspin 360, not, you're confusing two things because there's one called Iron Neck. That's not what you want. You want the Topspin 360. I don't know if they have a list of providers, but I'm sure that if you go to the Topspin 360 website, you can contact them and try to ask if there are any providers in your area. And it's specifically for people with super weak necks. So you would be a good candidate, depending. But generally, that's what it's for. And it's good because it kind of meets you where you're at. If you're really weak and you don't have good coordination, well, then you won't be able to spin the device very quickly, which means it's not going to generate too much force. So it's self-guided, self-directed. So it meets you where you're at. And that's the beauty of it. And as you get more strength and more muscular coordination, you can spin it faster, which means it generates more force for you, which means you increase your strength even more. And then now you can spin it even faster, and so on and so on and so on. So it really allows you to build really well. And it's very safe, and the results are insane. So try to reach out to them and see if you can find somebody near you.
Great. So to loop back to the recovery mindset section, they haven't answered back, but I know while speaking with members, I do get this question often of, this is a module that's really hard for members to go through. Some have never done mindfulness meditation before. Some have done just a little bit of it. So maybe, Melinda, if you could just kind of talk in general of maybe some tips on the best way to kind of go through that module for people who are new to it and have never really done a lot of internal reflection, mindfulness, meditation, anything like that.
Yeah. Well, the recovery mindset module covers a number of different areas. It first starts by helping us to build awareness about the interconnection between our thoughts, our mood, our behavior, our body sensations, as a way to just really start to understand how our mind and body are interconnected. So the first four sections are really giving us skills and tools to help us build this self-awareness about our mind and body, as well as taking a closer look at our thoughts and how cognitive distortions, which are, disruptions in our thought patterns, can actually help or hinder our healing. So, for example, something like catastrophizing, which is where we can look at the worst case scenarios for every possible symptom that we're experiencing. If that's something members are experiencing, it's likely this can actually hinder your healing because we're too focused on the worst case scenarios, which is going to disrupt our nervous system more, lead to things like anxiety, sometimes depression. So the first 4 or 5 sections are a review of those types of things. Then we move into certain types of practices. Once you've been able to build that self-awareness, and then take a look at the quality of your thoughts, we then move into different types of practices to help support your nervous system. Those include grounding, breath work, mindfulness, meditation, and self-compassion, which we're going to be even expanding further on our 2025 re-record that we're currently underway with. So it's kind of hard to answer here, but you might just think of the entire practices section as inviting you to explore which parts of the recovery mindset you might benefit from. So if you're feeling let me think of the best overall question, which is people start to get stuck on the mindfulness. So sometimes people will share with us, or oftentimes people will share with us, that I really like the grounding and the breath work, which is sort of nervous system regulating. But when I get to mindfulness, I start to feel a little overwhelmed or triggered. So it's sort of this sense of assessing for yourself if a certain section or practice in the recovery mindset feels like it's too much. You just want to slow down and work on the pieces that resonate with you right now. And we invite those questions here. So even getting a little bit more specific for us will be helpful. Some people do not like the practice of meditation. So there is a module there where you'll be walked through how to meditate from start to finish. And that may or may not resonate, right? So there's also different offerings there, like movement practices. We have lives on somatic work, how that's also regulating for the nervous system and supports our focus and concentration in the same way that meditation can. And then self-compassion can be a challenging one for a lot of people because it invites us to take a real critical look at how we talk to ourselves and speak to ourselves. So sometimes we can be quite self-critical and hard on ourselves following a concussion, especially when symptoms persist. So the self-compassion module talks a lot about how we can start to generate feelings of softness and kindness towards ourselves for our suffering. And sometimes people really have an aversion to that. And we even mention it in the module, right? It's natural to have an aversion if you were never raised as someone that was able to sort of think kindly and softly towards yourself when you're suffering. So the practices in the self-compassion module help us to support building a kind and supportive view of ourselves so that we can overcome challenging things like persistent concussion symptoms. So that's kind of an overview. There are hangups in different parts of the recovery mindset depending on the individual. So the more specific we can get with our questions, the more likely I'll be able to support.
No, I think that's great. Like I said, we do get a lot of members who, and we have it at the beginning for a reason because it is such an important part. It does lay down the foundation, but it is one that some people do find hard as well to go through. So I think that was a great overview. And I would just add to of like, don't, and I know easier said than done. Don't stress about it. There's no rush. There's no, right. We always say go at a turtle pace because it takes time. And that includes, the whole program of just take your time and go through it and don't rush and kind of enjoy the process in a way. I know we want to get better yesterday, but it's the slow and steady process through it that's going to make the best results.
And the kind of idea of this growth mindset that we review at the very start of the program is this sense of inviting yourself to get curious about certain ways we look at ourselves or look at the world that might hold us back. And that's often what shows up in that recovery mindset is certain assumptions or ways we view the world that we feel are static or fixed. We just might not notice that they're static or fixed until we actually look at them a little bit closer. And then we're like, oh, right, I never learned how to be kind to myself growing up. So I don't know what that's like. I don't understand why I can't go through the self-compassion module. But when we take a little bit of a closer look and put a closer lens on, it's, I actually never learned that being kind to myself can actually support recovery, can support changes in our mind body. So there's a lot of examples like that I hear.
Thanks for listening to this Concussion Fix Minisode. If you want to learn more about the causes of persistent concussion symptoms and how to fix them, join one of our upcoming free 90-minute patient webinars. Details and sign-up links are in the description. You'll see that with the right approach, recovery is possible. See you there.